Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video we will be talking about a very powerful large autumn storm that will be developing across the country. For the past few weeks across the United States it has been very quiet. There have been very minimal disturbances and it's been very warm. And what we will be approaching now is kind of the apex of this autumn heat wave. We will be experiencing a lot of heat across a good portion of the United States, but there will be some cold air digging in. And this will allow for the first larger system to take place. So I want to spend some time talking about the system that will be developing across the United States into this late week. But I also at the end want to briefly talk about what's to come in the future. It looks like there will be quite a bit of more activity as we head into the month of October, potentially way more fall weather and even some possible large winter storms. So currently, as you can see above my head, we have the satellite map of the United States. Again, there is a system moving into the west coast of the United States right now. That is the beginning of the storm that we will be addressing. There are also two powerful storms, tropical storms across the Atlantic. You could see right there on the east, on the very, very far right, I guess this way of the map. Those will be basically steering clear of the United States, so there's nothing really to worry about that. Let's now talk about the GFS, as this is one of the main models that I use. And I'll be also showing you the European model. Good thing is about this system that I'm going to be addressing, the models agree quite well actually as well. Notice that right now, as I mentioned, we don't have much going on. We have a high pressure that is very, very strong across the eastern United States. And it actually is developing and delivering quite a bit of cooler air across the northeastern United States. If you were to take a look at the 2-meter temperature anomaly graph, you can see that it is in fact a little cooler across the northeast and to southeastern Canada. But mainly across the rest of the United States and southern Canada, it is very warm, and that cool air across the northeast won't last long. As I run this forward, you can see that this high pressure that is centered right now across really northwestern Quebec begins to move further and further off the shore. Now, this high pressure not only is going to be contributing factor to this really potentially strong heat wave across a good portion of the middle United States and southern Canada into this upcoming weekend specifically, but it also is the very exact thing that spun both of these hurricanes away from the United States. So this year, we have been quite lucky in terms of the high pressures steering away hurricanes away from the United States. That has already happened several times. I believe it was, well, one significant time in early August, and now again with these two. So that is very good news. Note the pattern doesn't really look active as we head into the end week, but it quickly begins to show signs of some concern. Well, what I'm talking about mainly is across the west. Notice that into Idaho, Montana, into Nevada, we have a system that has a strong trough as it digs into the United States. Now, there's not much cold air accompanying this system, but there is a large southwest flow out ahead of the system. And typically when you have any sort of western ridging, so basically a dip in a jet stream across the western United States and a powerful southwesterly flow, it's only a matter of time before one of these spins up into a larger system, especially during our time of the year. So note that we are beginning to develop very strong winds into late Friday into Saturday across the plains. This will be a big fire hazard as a lot of these areas will see wind and little precipitation at first. Note again, we also have an area of cooler temperatures digging into, at this point, Alberta and into British Columbia. So these two little weather features combined, a piece of energy from the previous storm and that little bit of a ridge across the west, now getting enhanced by secondary ridge. Notice we still have a very strong high pressure, basically not allowing the system to move east and just intensifying it. Note we have snow occurring across much of the Yellowstone Plateau, into the Wasatch there, into portions of southern Montana. And we could see that the snow probably would be a lot more represented on these maps if it wasn't for the fact that it's still in a very warm pattern. Nonetheless, the system erupts into a pretty powerful storm. You can see begins developing a cold front, a warm front out ahead of it. Again, it's pretty far north of the viewing area, but it is nonetheless a system that's going to impact a lot of folks, not even necessarily directly through rain, but also indirectly through the wind. The wind will be really powerful across much of these areas into as far east as Chicago, Detroit, Milwaukee, St. Louis, all those northern cities across the Midwest. Even though the system is hundreds of miles away from you, its pressure field from its wind field from this strong pressure will be felt. And note that this thing moves away really snow-free, very far north at this time of the year. That is very unusual. However, what is interesting following this system is that we get a reinforcing cold shot behind it, and that potentially interacts with some of that warm air, and the models have been hinting more and more at this, that we could be seeing some sort of a secondary larger system that has a lot more snow and potentially brings in a much colder pattern into the United States. So that is definitely something we will have to watch for. Aside from the really strong winds that will be with this system, another very prominent feature will be some rain, and it will be quite heavy in some areas. You can see that across Nevada, Idaho, Montana, especially northwestern Wyoming, and into portions of the southern Canadian prairies and into the northern plains. We have, according to the GFS, quite a bit of rainfall. And again, we are getting to the time of the year where these systems will begin to develop more and more snow with them. At this point, because of the lack of cold air, the snow will really remain only towards the mountainous areas, so you can see the snowfall footprint is not significant. You may be wondering, what does the European model show? You showed us a GFS, and now I want to show you the European, because I always like showing a few models so that you guys have a balanced look at what differences the models may have. And in this case, the differences aren't major. Notice we have the same pattern. These two systems, they spin away and move away. We have the strong high pressure across the eastern United States, delivering quite a bit of strong winds, again, helping essentially set up this pattern for this large system later on in the week. We have that ridging across the west, right? That little system, that little disturbance. It begins the process of cyclogenesis, basically the formation of a system. Notice that the European model introduces the 540 line a little further deeper into the United States, and especially really Canada, than the GFS does. The GFS was really not even showing any at this point in time. So this allows the system to develop into a bigger precipitation maker and a little bit more developed earlier on. You can see it has a lot of rain here. Again, this is supposed to show snow if it's cold enough, but it just isn't. This is going to be mainly falling all as rain. And you can see that the European does develop this into a powerful storm, and again, because of this high pressure, helping develop a really strong wind field from the system. If this was occurring in a pattern that was void of any high pressures, A, the system probably wouldn't develop, and B, even if it did, the wind field would probably be a lot smaller than the combination of these two. And you can see that these winds are going to be gale force, and probably wind advisories are going to be extending from the northern plains all the way into portions of the central United States this upcoming weekend, with very, very warm temperatures. Now, what's the same with this with the models is that this kind of allows some of this cooler air to make its way pretty far south. Again, for this for any normal year, this would be nothing, but for this year, we've been stuck in such a warm pattern that any below 540 line, which is the freezing line, is a kind of a change from what we've been seeing, and it allows potentially the setup for larger systems later on, which have the potential to deliver more snow and whatnot. So as you can see, the European precipitation shield is even more significant than the GFS because it keeps the system more slanted and an axis that kind of runs parallel to the warm front. It's essentially going to track across the same areas that got rain from the warm front. So there could be some amounts across the northern plains, according to the European, and the southern Canadian prairies, really more into Quebec here, that are going to be, or Ontario I should say, that are going to be extending into the 2 to 3, 4-inch ranges. That is basically it for today's video. I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of the impacts from this system and where they will be. And I couldn't go into much detail because the system is still very far out. So the shorter range models like the NAM 12KM that go out to 84 hours still aren't really picking up on this. So they're not really offering us any point of view that is interesting. That is basically it for today's video, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. See ya. Bye.